Hi, it's a great joy once again to meet you through the series of meditations. We have been meditating Genesis chapter 11. We are looking at the people who are trying to reach heaven through a tower by their own strength. So, we looked at two very important lessons. Two very important corrective lessons. Lesson number 1 was this: don't seek name and fame for yourself. Lesson number 2 was this: don't aim for bigness. So why don't we quickly move on to the third lesson? The third lesson is this, which is very, very important, especially during these times when people are becoming much self-dependent on themselves, self-reliant on themselves, when so much of self-help books are available in the market. I think this is a very, very important lesson. The third lesson is this: don't depend on human strength. Don't depend on human strength. Don't depend on your own self-strength. Let's look at verse 3. It says, the people are talking to themselves. Come, let us make bricks. Come, let us. They were depending on their strength and their wisdom to create something. Look at the first part of verse 4. Come, let us build something. God was never in the picture. God's wisdom, God's strength was never in the picture. They were just telling, come, let us build. Let us build. They were dependent on their strength to build something, and even they were trying to seek a name by their own strength, and even they were trying to stand so united by their own strength. Now let's look at this. They said, let us make a name, let us make for ourselves a name, otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the earth. That means they were trying to stand united, and they were trying to stand united by their own strength, These people who were building tower were dependent completely on their strength, that God was never in the picture. This didn't happen 4,000, 5,000 years from creation. This just happened, in a very few years, maybe a few centuries since that creation happened. So quickly their dependency from God changed to their dependency on their flesh. Today we say, people are more dependent on themselves. But this was not just today's problem. The problem was there even during the time of Noah, even during the time of Abraham. That's what we see here. Just now, these people about whom we are actually meditating are the descendants of Noah. The entire earth was destroyed. The entire population was destroyed. Only 8 people survived the flood. And out of that 8, the children who were born to those 8 people are those who are now getting dependent on themselves more than God. And that is something that is very, very important. That is something that we should know. Let's see verse 6. Verse 6 says like this: the Lord said, behold, they are one people. That's how they were dependent. Even the Lord was amazed at the way they were trying to stand united. Even it shocked God. And verse 6, the second part says, and now nothing which they purpose to do will be impossible for them. They were so much dependent on themselves that it even amazed God that because of their unity they can do anything that they want. We will look about their unity separately in another point. But today the lesson is the important lesson that I want to share with you is this: these people were dependent on their strength, and the tower at the end had a miserable failure. And that teaches us a very important point. We should never depend on ourselves. Let me just read 2 verses for you. This is a very short lesson, but a very important lesson. Let me just read 2 very important verses for you even before I close. Jeremiah chapter 17 and verse 5. Jeremiah chapter 17 and verse 5 says this: cursed is the man who trusts in mankind and makes flesh his strength. Cursed is the man who trusts in mankind and makes flesh his strength. In Tamil it's very beautiful. மாம்சத்தை நம்பி தன் மாம்சத்தை தன் புயபலமாய் ஆக்கிக் கொண்ட மனுஷன் சபிக்கப்பட்டவன். Cursed is the man who trusts in mankind and makes the flesh has his strength. Today, what is our strength? That is very, very important. What is your strength? Is your flesh your strength, or is your muscle power your strength? Is your biceps, triceps your strength, or is the background of your family your strength, or the influential uncle, is he your strength, or is it the beauty of your face, is that your strength? Today people are so much dependent on their influence, on their greatness, that they lose focus on God. That's what the Bible verse says in Jeremiah 17:5. Cursed is the man who trusts in man. And the first point is, don't trust man. The second point is this: cursed is also the man who makes his own flesh as his strength. When we read there is another very beautiful verse which says, I think it comes in the book of Deuteronomy, which says, it is God who gives you the strength to work. That is something that we should know. It is God who gives you the strength to work. That is something that we should never forget. God gives you and me the strength to work, to earn. If you are a person who has been paid regularly, if you are getting a salary regularly, if you are able to go out and work, if you have a job, I'll tell you, it is God who is giving you the strength. It is not because of your wisdom. It's not because of your tactics. It is not because of your grasping power. It is not because of your skills. It is not because of your abilities. But God has given you strength. God has given us knowledge. God has given us wisdom to understand things, to grasp things, to use our skills, to use our abilities. That is very, very important. We should always depend on God than to depend on ourselves. That's what Zechariah chapter 4 and verse 6 says. Not by might, not by power, but by His Spirit, but by His Spirit. That is something that we should never know. Let me just conclude, with three individuals. Number one, the first individual is this Peter. When Jesus said, when the cock crows the third time, you will betray me. Peter said, no, Lord, never. Even if I die, I will die with you. I will never betray you. But Jesus said, it will happen. And he said, no, it's not going to happen. But we know what happened at the end. He was so much soaked up in his own strength, in his own power, resilience power to stand against it. But at the end of the day, that he fell to it. Similarly, Moses, when he tried to deliver Israelites from the hand of Egyptians by his own strength, he could kill just one Egyptian. By his own strength, when he tried to deliver Israel out of Egypt, from the hand of the Egypt, he could just kill only one Egyptian. He could just save only one Israelite. But when he went in with God's strength, he took a nation out of it. That is something very, very important. Peter failed by his own strength. Even the great prophet Moses, the meekest man on earth, he failed in his own strength. Now think of Abraham. When he trusted in his own flesh, when he could just obey, when he blindly did things. Ishmael was born. That is another thing that we should realize. Every time when we do things by our own strength, we are going to complicate matters. We are going to, it became a very big issue in Abraham's life. There was a misunderstanding between him and his wife, then between Ishmael and Isaac. Then he had to send out Isaac. That became a very big issue. Anything that we do by our own strength, it is going to make matters worse. But when we trust God and seek Him and say, Lord, I am not dependent on myself, I am dependent on you, I think that is where we really get the blessing, and that is where we will enjoy the blessing. Let me just conclude with these words. Proverbs chapter 3 from verse 5, a well-known verse. Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. Then it says, in all your ways acknowledge Him and He will make your path straight. In all your ways acknowledge Him and He will make your path straight. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on Him. Maybe you are a man of influence. Maybe you are a man of power. Maybe you are a man who has a great backup on you. Maybe you are a man who has a great background behind you. Whatever it might be. My previous series of sermon, you can find it in YouTube, where I talk about King Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat, the man who had an entire army behind him, but still he went to God in 2 Chronicles chapter 20 and he said, Lord, I do not know what to do. I am powerless. I am helpless. Lord, help me. Even if you have a great backup behind you, it is time that we surrender ourselves to say, Lord, I don't depend on my strength. I depend on you. Lord, help me. Let this be a lesson to us. Lesson number 3. Let us never depend on our own strength. Let us never depend on our own strength. May God bless us. May God guide us. May God help us. Stay safe and be blessed. Let us not be a failure like the Tower of Babel. Let us be a success in the hand of the Lord. Let us be a successful weapon in the hand of the Lord. Stay blessed. Stay safe. Amen. Amen.